I'm Jim Gatwood. I am a cybersecurity professional, currently Chief Cybersecurity Architecture Operations CB&I. We divested out of McDermott last year. I'm a hardware hacker, gadget nerd. I'm at Jim Gat on Twitter and Discord. My ham call is WA9JG. That's a obligatory disclaimer. So why would you care about ham radio as a cybersecurity pro, right? Ham radio was the original hacker network. Ham radio was what started the whole hacker started the hacker movement. Truthfully, all of the makers, inventors, everybody, Edison trying to develop the light bulb, Marconi trying to figure out how to get those radio waves across. Uh, Bell trying to get his voice across some wires. That all of those people were very instrumental in even where we're at now. All of our technology. It was the world's first social media. All of the ham radio operators and the radio people kind of get together and they'd get a schedule and they'd talk to each other and they'd share ideas and share things. So that was the world's first social media, truthfully. Still thriving after, well, maybe not the first. There might have been some prior, but especially if anthropologists probably would debate that with me. But it's still thriving after more than 100 years. It's radio has been around for more than 100 years now, and it's still a big part of our life. Everything you carry has got some type of radio device in it, and somebody developed that, and somebody thought about it, and they were usually the amateur radios, the hams, the amateurs that did the experimentation. So a quick hacker story. Kevin Mitnick used to always tell this. He'd tell. I think I heard him tell this live 3 times, right? About how he would discovered he could hijack a drive-through. So he'd be out cruising around like we used to do when I was a kid. We'd go out on the town and cruise around, and that's how we met up with our people. We didn't just go play WoW online or something. So he'd meet up with his friends and they'd go out and do stuff, play around, see what kind of trouble they can get into. I did pretty much the same thing, but he said during that time he'd go out and he'd mess with the order takers at the restaurants. Well, I figured that out about that time too. We were both kids about the same time, teenagers. But I also figured out that the trigger to trigger the intercom to talk to the customer was a PL tone. That's a subaudible tone that is transmitted with the voice. The radio's filters cut that out so that it's not really subaudible like 100 hertz tone, 100, but there's a set number of them, right? So I went through the whole list to figure that out. I figured out you could actually talk to the customer, so I literally could key up the intercom and talk to the person in the car. And if it was a cute girl, that might be to my advantage, or it might be might get me doxxed. But that was early proof that radio systems can be explored. Like we do computer networks. There was stuff we figured out how they did it, and it was security by obscurity. Still is on a lot of things. So back in the early 90s, the way radios work is radios work off they are tuned to, they tune out all the other noise. So I'll talk about the noise floor and things like that here in the future. Let me go back to there. The noise floor is kind of the the low edges, so not the peaks, but where the average is on that picture you see there, um, on the top section. So if you see where that average of that noise is, that's what a noise floor is when I talk about noise floor here. But basically, back in the day, they figured out they could create a tuned circuit that was super sensitive, and then they could add filters to get rid of all the other noise and only hear what they want to hear. And that's what a radio does. Well, back in the 90s, there were some developments in using audio cards and using very fast analog to digital converters that allowed them to figure out, hey, I can do this across the large spectrum. I don't have to make it where it's super tunable. I can let the computer figure out how to filter that, how to tune that out. That's what you get with tools like GNU Radio, SDR Sharp. That SDR Sharp commonly uses the RTL SDR, the HackRF, well, both the SDR Sharp, GNU Radio, almost all the SDR programs out there works like that. But all of that filtering and all of that demodulation is built by software. It's no longer hardware, so it's not constrained to having capacitors and coils and having them configured and having to solder them. And then if you want to change it, they have to be tunable and just all kinds of stuff. You could do it in software. So you could build something that would take a team in Motorola, you know, half 6 months to develop. You can do that in 5 minutes with GNU Radio. And then the flex radios are kind of cool ham radios. I'll show you mine here in a little while. But just kind of this is what an SDR looks like if you've not touched SDR. And I've had previous sessions on SDRs, and we'll probably do some here in the future. Some of the really cool things that have been developed in the last 10 years really is FT8. FT8 uses Fourier transforms. Joe Taylor, Princeton University developed this, and it pulls out signal that is below the noise floor. So when they say comms below 20 dBs signal noise, that means those are communications that are happening at 20 dB below the signal to noise rate or the noise floor. And 20 dB, 3 dB is twice the level. So 20 dB is a lot. 20 dB is a heck of a lot of level below the noise floor. They use error correction, resilience. LoRa is something very important. John Owen's session yesterday about Meshtastic. Meshtastic uses LoRa. VARA FM. VARA uses multi-quadrant audio signaling. So it's not just that ASCII screeching modem we used to all hear for the old ones of us here. It literally does multiple. It uses multiple frequencies that do constructive interrelationships. So it's pretty crazy. LoRa being the interesting one. If you notice here, LoRa is on the right side. It is the basically those are it's time and that's frequency. So it's literally what they call a chirp. The reason they call it as a chirp is because this is a chirp of a songbird. This is a sparrow communicating. And if you notice that chirp, here's kind of your noise. Here's like ambient noise, lots of noise there. That chirp looks very similar to that chirp. Well, somebody figured out, hey, there's a reason they make that chirp, and started playing with it and realized that we can do the same thing with radio waves. So they took the sound wave concept and introduced it to radio. One of the other really interesting things is WinLink. And WinLink, for the most part, uses VARA. VARA is a very fast protocol compared to the old packet, which is more just an ASCII protocol. You can send and receive messages over HF and true email. So I can send email within the system, or I can send email out of the system with WinLink. WinLink was developed pretty much for commercial use originally, for maritime, for ships. Then a lot of amateur sailors, which are also amateur radio operators, because the HF radio was the only way they could communicate long distances without wires. Developed kind of morphed this, and again, this was all happening back in the 90s. So one of my stories is during Snowmageddon a few years back, I woke up one morning and all cell towers, there were no cell towers, there was no internet, there was no communications. I had to start the generator, stay warm. There was actually snow on the ground in Texas. Austin was kind of froze up, and there was all kinds of craziness. But I had no way to really let anybody know I was okay. So my mom lives up in the Midwest. I'm sure she was worried. In the Midwest, we never cared about snow, right? But here, nobody planned. The cell towers, nobody put diesel additive in the cell towers. None of their diesel generators started. It was just havoc. But I really wanted to let the guys, I worked at Fulcrum at the time. I wanted to let the guys at Fulcrum, know that, hey, I'm okay. You know, all good. Not going to communicate. I have no comms other than my radio. I wanted to let my mom know it's okay, and I wanted to let my sponsor for a contract I was working with Fulcrum, small computer company that is Texas based. So I was working with them, but I wanted to let everybody know I was getting okay. So I was doing okay, but I wasn't going to be on. I wasn't going to be online. wasn't going to make it to meetings and things like that. Now, truthfully, ham radio can only be used for non-commercial purposes. But I was basically, the way I bent the rules is I was giving them a wellness report, right? So I got on there, sent an email, sent it out. I used my radio and WinLink to communicate and send that out a WinLink gateway that was located in Mexico City. So I sent that out the WinLink gateway. It went to everybody. My mom knew I was okay. People knew I wasn't going to be at work, all that good stuff, right? Another thing really cool about ham radio and a lot of things we do is space. So satellites, space communications, telemetry, things like that really got its roots in amateur radio operators. They designed those things. So you have amateur satellites that are strictly amateur designed. You have scientific satellites that are designed for scientific purposes that when they're done with their mission, will switch to amateur radio mode. So they're up there, they're traveling. You get about 12 minutes horizon, because those things are flying fast, just like the International Space Station. They're not geostationary for the most part. There's one geostationary amateur radio satellite, and that's Qatar launched that, and it's over Qatar. Well, actually, it's kind of over Africa, but it's Qatar's satellite. Okay, so the other thing is cool things about radio is you can detect the space telemetry. Um, for quite a while, the telemetry to SpaceX was wide open until they realized everybody was watching the video feeds and dealing with telemetry, and they could see what happened before SpaceX released an official statement. So they fixed that very quickly. Back in 78 through 89, SATCOM. So the Navy launched Fleet SATCOM. They launched those satellites. They didn't put any encryption on them. They didn't put any on-off control, no gates, no authentication, nothing on those satellites. They retransmitted what they heard. Well, back about 20 years ago, early 2000s, you got a lot of pirates, drug runners, illegal loggers, just drug cartels down in South America figured out they could use these satellites. It's UHF. It's 1.25 meters, and the radios in your kit will actually receive this and transmit it, but do not transmit on these satellites. The U.S. has cracked down. Being in the U.S., they will find you. You will go to jail because they're U.S. military satellites. There's a URL there for information, just in case you want to get yourself in trouble. The big thing is HF propagation. So the reason I was able to send a signal to Mexico City is that I was literally able to bounce my signal off the ionosphere. So I bounced it off the ionosphere down to the receiving point in Mexico City. Probably about one down bounce, depending on the distance we have now. HF propagation, the things that get this information around the globe, are very, very much like a fiber optic. a fiber optic, the reason fiber optic works is it bounces light down a strand of glass or plastic that has a cladding that changes the incidence of refraction. Well, when that incident of refraction changes, it, instead of going through, it bounces, it reflects. So it bounces back and forth through that fiber optic. Same thing about getting these signals around the globe. Um, it leverages things like solar cycles that charge the ionosphere differently. The sun moving. So the middle picture there is what they call the gray line, where you can see the line between darkness and sunlight. That gray line changes temperature. That temperature causes a refraction of radio waves. Early mornings, I can hear Tokyo, Japan, like they're sitting next to me. Evenings, I can talk to New Zealand. The reason you want to get into ham radio is knowing. So if you're wanting to prep for the end of the world, or you just want to be able to prep to communicate to people if infrastructure fails, you need to know how to do it. You need to know what antennas, you need to know what bands, you need to know where to go, you need to know what times of the day, you need to know, should it be in the darkness or light? So kind of like fishing. If you're going to catch fish, am I going to look for the fish? What's the temperature? What's the water temp? Am I going to look under a shady spot? Am I going to look out in the sun? Am I going to cast there? What type of bait should I use? All that thing. It's the same stuff. Let's see, I'll do my time. Yep, I need to go. The other thing, signal intelligence, radio Fox hunts. Our club had one last Saturday where we hid 3 transmitters and had people find it. We did things to keep them from finding it and had a little bit of fun with it. Radio direction finding, triangulation. If you have multiple stations, you can triangulate. You can use a high gain antenna, Yagi, that has a good what they call backward reejection, meaning 0 signal comes from the very center of the back. It'll cancel almost everything. So you can look for road signals, you can look for transmitters, you can look for even if they're just signals that you're like, what is this? What am I going to do? Well, you could go find the signal, and if you're doing like 430 megahertz, you can go find and figure out that it's a river sounding device transmitting up to a satellite, and you can see and you'd be like, oh, well, it's this, so maybe I can find an FCC ID and then I can go figure out what it is. The other reason, we do lots of IoT stuff with the ham radio. Raspberry Pis, you got one there with your Pi hole. Um, there's a Pi 02W inside this little Shari Pi box that I use as a node. So that's a node that connects to the internet. It's running Asterisk, open source PBX. It's running some special modules for Asterisk, but I can use my HT and talk as if I was connected to a repeater, my brother's repeater in Macon, Georgia, or another friend I have his repeater in Aberdeen, Scotland, or there's a gentleman in New Zealand that I talk to every once in a while. Had a really good friend. He passed away up in Grants Pass. I'd been up there several times and got to know him, and he had a repeater system up there, so I could hop into those repeater systems and talk to those people. You got other things like Echolink All-Star, DMR, just lots of stuff to get into, lots of rabbit holes. APRS, Amateur Radio Positioning System. So it kind of shows it's open, wide open, so there's no OPSEC there. But I'll turn that on when I'm going to visit my mom in Indiana when I'm traveling, and I can give my wife the links. They can check me out on aprs.fi and see where my APS is. Arden, amateur radio operators can use more frequencies and higher power, much higher power levels than commercial or what's been defined for the ISM band, the scientific use band, and that's where your Wi-Fi bands fall. They fall within those bands. Their power, they have to use less than 1 watt ERP, and that means 1 watt, including the gain of the antenna system they're using. So we can use on the 2.4 gig range, I can use 250 watts EIRP. That's a little bit more power there, right? We also, because of Arden, we can use different frequency bandwidths. So I can flash special firmware and make the Wi-Fi modem go out of frequency. Well, it's not out of frequency for me, it's allowed. That's kind of what John was talking about checking the box on the Meshtastic yesterday, because you can do that for Meshtastic. I can buy European Meshtastic nodes that work in the 430 megahertz, and I technically could legally amplify them to 1500 watts in UHF range. So it's pretty nuts, the stuff you could do. So there's lots of crossover between, encryption things and stuff you can do and just neat stuff. And why should we care? As cybersecurity pros, we should care, um, because it's the shared stuff. There is a lot of RF hacking, to be found, to be done. Sammy Kamkar, he's a friend of mine. He's one of the first guys that did some DEF CON talks back in and did a talk on rolling the codes on your garage doors and rolling the codes on your older model cars and being able to do that. Now there's been some stuff implemented. You can still do that on the newer cars. You're probably going to break your remote because of the some of the stuff they've done, the protections they've attempted to put in. Attempted is what I say. It's all obscurity. Security through obscurity. They are now finally doing best practices, but we need you. We need people to go figure this stuff out. All right, in your goodie box is, if you were one of the first 200 and you got your goodie box, is a Bofang K63. Many years ago, back when we started, I was one of the original founders, pilots, the COVID con, when we started these FCON series. We provided, I think on the holiday edition, we provided a Bofang. The Bofang was a UV5R. It was like one of the first. It was the icon Bofang. This is a much better version. It has USB-C charging port. It has a much more readable display. You can see it, read it much better. It's a tri-band. That means it does both the UHF bands. The 1.25 meg is still considered UHF. There's a high band, a middle band, and a low band in UHF. VHF, there's a high band and a low band. That's more than I want to get into here. And this radio is hackable. There is some firmware that's been created that is not the original firmware of the radio that is available. This radio is also right now, I think, $26. So the kit you got in your box, $26. The Amazon link's down there below. That's not an affiliate link. It'll take you to the actual link. I'm not going to get anything off that. Has an extended antenna. It's just a really good radio. Like I said, the big changer is a USB-C charging port on the battery. Now you can't program it through that. You still have to use a program cable. That came in your box too. But it's chargeable. The battery's chargeable off the radio or on the radio via USB-C. All right. So figuring out your COM port. So there's a cable with a USB connection and two little plugs on it. I don't know if you can see that in the picture. Two little plugs. This is called a K1 connector. That was because Kenwood was the original person that come up with this standard, and it's a kind of a Kenwood standard. But lots of makers use that. Lots of radio designers have used the K1 style, so it's kind of become a standard for HT. So you plug that in. When you plug it in, it's going to go doo-doo, and it's going to come up as a USB serial device. Now, the one you got in your kit, if you loaded the Windows drivers for John's session, the silicon, I think the silicon or the silicon, I can't remember what they are. Anyway, the CP210X drivers, those drivers are going to be, I think there's, for most of the ones in your kits are going to be those. The other options, the FTDI stay away from the prolific. If there's prolific drivers for a Bofang, run, because there was some counterfeit chips, prolific changed their drivers. It caused a lot of problems. So go to your, plug it in, go to your device manager, and then expand your your ports and check to see what port was arrived. And if you can't figure it out, unplug it and see which one goes away, and then plug it back in, see which one comes back. All right, connect up the radio. You want to turn off the radio. You want to plug in the K1 connector of the radio. So my radio is off. If you can see up here, my radio is off. You want to plug it in all the way, and that's why you want to turn it off, because putting pressure on both sides of the radio right there is literally going to force you to push the PTT button. If your radio is on, it will send RF into your USB signal and possibly knock out or completely permanently damage your USB connection. That's important. Do not transmit with the cable plugged in. Turn your radio on. You'll turn it on to about 50%. At least 50%. That way it communicates. That volume is important because it really literally communicates to the computer via sounds. It does TTL shifting on serial communications, but it's basically sounds. So it's an acoustic modem. Directly, it's literally direct coupled though. All right. You want to make sure it's on a channel, the LED is off, that it's not green. You don't want to be, it doesn't want to be receiving something while it's trying to communicate with the computer. All right, two things you can use. And before I did a chirp session on chirp, this radio, you can download the actual Bofang software. They call it CPS. So your DMR radios, Motorola, DMR, your commercial, your Harris, all those brands, they call their software CPS. It's code plug systems or code plug software, depending on who you talk to. They create what's called a code plug. That code plug, that terminology is left over from the old SIGINT guys in the military that used to run around putting code plugs in radios to put encryption keys and channel frequency, hopping frequency sets in. So that's kind of where that code plug comes from. So download your software. Your software looks like this. Here's what it looks like. First thing you want to do on your radio is you're going to want to read from radio. So I'm gonna do a read. So I'm gonna start the read. You want to read the radio. It takes a little bit of time. You'll want to read the radio, and mine I've already programmed, so I'm cheating. It's going to be blank, right? But you're going to want to save that blank copy of that. So then go save that blank copy. That's before you program anything. It's before you change anything. If you screw up your programming, you can go to that blank unmodified copy and you can get back. So make your backup. That's important. So get your backup on there. The other software that is available to use is Chirp. And forward here. So Chirp is here's a quick install on Chirp. Chirp is Windows, OS X, Linux. Same thing. You'll have to know your COM port. You're going to want to go to, you want to pull up Chirp. And Chirp will, you'll be able to program. I have some old COVID sessions, and I think some of them I've saved to my YouTube channel. That's also at Jim Gap, I think. I think I changed that. On the YouTube channel. There's lots of Chirp programming YouTubes out there, just YouTube Chirp. Chirp radio programming, and you'll see all kinds of stuff. For Linux, if you're on Ubuntu or newer distros, you're going to need to add your dial group, or you're going to have to sudo your sudo Chirp, one or the other. Okay. You'll select the radio in chirp from the drop down. You'll communicate with the radio, select it. You'll give it your COM port. Mine's 13 in this case right now. You'll tell it Bofang and K6. There are other brands of radios that have the same nomenclature, which I'll get into here in just a second. There's a K6, there's K5, and a Quansheng brand. You'll want Bofang K6 for this radio. I would suggest download from radio, save that image right away as original. That way, if you screw something up, you can get back to fixed. You can get back to I have a working radio versus I bricked it. Start your download. There's lots of ways to input frequencies in both chirp and the Bofang CPS. You can copy paste frequencies from one program to another, find local clubs. Some of those ham have chirp lists. They can export it in CSV. You can import it directly, or you could pull their file up in chirp and go back and forth and paste them and stuff like that. Stock chirp allows you to import NOAA weather frequencies. I would suggest checking the do not transmit box. If you put those in your radio, there was a recent FCC statement of a ham that accidentally transmitted on the forestry frequencies. He had him in there to listen to him, but he transmitted on. He admitted to it. They haven't found him yet. They're waiting for his plan of action, POA. I'm sure he's probably just going to get a slap on the wrist. He totally is like, yes, I screwed up. I probably accidentally did that. I have the marine channels in my radios. I'm a boater. It's illegal to transmit. The way I look at it is if I need to transmit on it in an emergency, I'm going to do it. And that's kind of, there's some gray area in the law and the way the laws are written. I'd say if it's a emergency that you have to transmit, if that's your only means of communication, they say that you can do it. It better be a life or death situation. Otherwise, you're probably going to get scrutinized and you're probably going to get fined, and you could lose your license, or you could lose, they could fine you. There was a case of a ham that tried to help the firefighters by reporting, where the forest fires are going up in, I think it was California. He was fined for obstructing because they were literally they didn't ask for his input. He was not licensed. He was not trained. He was not authorized. He was ham radio licensed, but he wasn't part of the efforts, right? He didn't go through all the training of a firefighter to know what he was talking about. FRS and GMS frequencies, you can put those in there. That radio will transmit those. That is illegal, but it'll do it. And really, as long as you keep the power levels low and within the law of GMRS, which is below 1 watt, nobody's going to question it, truthfully. They have the same radios, but they're locked and legally stamped by the FCC to do that. So anyway, that's all I'm saying there. Radio settings that you want to definitely make sure you uncheck. They are by default now, finally, in most radios. Roger beep. That's when you let off, the radio will go beep for you and transmit it out. Don't do that. Ham radio operator, it drives him nuts. I'll tell somebody, hey, you probably ought to get rid of that, turn that off. There's old curmudgeons on there that just get downright mean. All right. So once you get your frequencies in there, you'll hit upload to radio and you'll have working radio. Some of the interesting things, your radio is hackable, not to this level. The Quansheng version of the radio you have, and oddly enough, Bofang copied the Quansheng. Quansheng came first. And then Bofang, a Chinese company, stole the IP of another Chinese company to kind of improve on their radio and make people not. So this radio is about a $70, $80 radio. You can hack this with another board that you can buy off Temu or Banggood or AliExpress. You can put that board in that radio and receive HF. And that's shortwave frequencies and some of the stuff in the areas that I operate. So it's a really cool thing to be hackable. I have one, I've done one, I've upgraded the firmware. It works. It doesn't work great. It's not as sensitive as my radios that are purpose-built, because the radios are purpose-built, have special filters in them. They have amplifiers, they do special things. So, that's pretty much the end of my presentation. Ham radio equals hacking. It's comms. So if you're into signal intelligence, comms, knowing what's out there, or if you're into physics, all that stuff plays into ham radio. To get started, get you an SDR dongle. RTL SDR is super cheap get you a whole kit with antennas and stuff. I would say if you get an LNA, be sure you get an FM blocker. Um, a lot of those RTL SDR dongles were designed to receive radio frequencies and TV channels. They are super sensitive in that area. And if you're anywhere near an FM transmitter, it will totally wash out all the other signals. So FM filter is a good thing to have an SDR dongle. So you see an FM band filter, you want that knocked out. If you're not going to listen to radio on it, you want it knocked out so you can hear the other stuff. Local clubs, get your FCC license. Get the license so you can do it. Get on the repeaters, listen to the repeaters. If the QR code down there, hamstudy.org, those are free actual prep tests. Those are the actual questions. The test is 35 questions. The pool is like 170. A lot of them are similar. Get on there, take the hamstudy.org prep test. If you're hitting 80%, find you an online on that site. You can find an online group, Alaskan VEs, or they do online tests all the time, every day, or do local in-person testing. My club, the Lake Conroe Amateur Radio Club, we're doing testing this Thursday at 6 o'clock at the Woodlands Emergency Training Center. If you're not close to any of that, you're not close to Northern Conroe, you want to find a club near you, there are clubs all over Houston, there are clubs all over Austin, there are clubs all over Dallas. Get on there, the RRL, find a local club link, find your local club. But wait, there's more. On this deck, which you will get, I've included a list of famous hams. That was kind of a list I put together for my past presentations. It's just kind of neat. What's a repeater and how to use it? How's it gets used? So that's a repeater. Explains why you need repeaters. Explains why VHF radios don't go past 6 miles. And truthfully, they really, in a real world situation, radio to radio with topology, Earth topology, you're probably not getting more than 2.5 miles to be real. One side to Lake Conroe, the other, yep, that'll work. You can stand at the bottom of Lake Conroe and talk to somebody standing at the top of Lake Conroe, as long as you get a clear shot down the lake. So that explains, this next one explains how those repeaters work. There's an input frequency and an output frequency. That way they can repeat out exactly what they hear. And that's how amateur satellites work. They have a range of frequencies that they listen on, and at the same time, they output a range of frequencies. All right, cool stuff, SATCOM stuff. Pirates on SATCOM. You can build SATCOM antennas to listen. Just a simple Yagi paired up with your radio. You can hear these satellites. These SATCOM satellites are geostationary. You're talking about a 2-second delay, but hey, if you're not talking on it, it doesn't matter. So the geostationary satellites are about a 2-second delay from up there and back to Earth. Your satellites like the space station, you can talk to the space station. There's ham gear on there that you could send it a packet message. It's all kinds of cool things. All right, so just to show real quick, I think I'm my time 21. I think I'm getting closer, getting close to end of my session. Heck, I don't even know when my session ends. Caitlin, stop me if I'm going too long. This is my
Okay, Roger, Roger. I will be standby. Maybe somebody needs to talk to me. I will be standby. This frequency, over.
And hopefully you can hear that.
My location is Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee, QTH, over.
Roger on Nashville. We were down there a couple of years ago for New Year's Eve celebration. Had a great time.
So this gentleman's
I'm here
coming direct
33
from
years,
Nashville,
33 years.
Tennessee.
I'm living here, and this is my second address, second home. I am here long time. I am stay here, over. I know it's very great place. I know it's better than anywhere for me, because if it's not better, then I want to go change other state, but I'm stay here forever, over.
All right, so
And everything else.
try and look through my look through here. No time. Just says 12:20. That's all right.
Anybody for the Northrop Grumman
Thank you guys. Thank you,
K3
everyone.
in the end, listening?